Blade is more than just a vampire hunter, he is a character deeply rooted in the history of black representation in comics, the evolution of superhero storytelling, and the broader struggles against oppression, both fictional and real. We'll explore his origins in even more depth, his evolution as a character, the social and historical significance of his existence, and how Blade's presence in comics and film reshaped the landscape for black superheroes. Birth of Blade, a character rooted in the 1970s. Blade was created in the Tomb of Dracula No. 10, 1973, by writer Marv Wolfman and artist Gene Colan. He was not originally envisioned as a headlining character, rather, he was introduced as part of the ensemble cast battling Marvel's version of Dracula. However, Blade quickly outshined the other characters due to his unique presence, the black vampire hunter with a striking look, an edge, and a no-nonsense attitude. The Blaxploitation influenced the 1970s were a pivotal time in black pop culture. The rise of Blaxploitation films, movies like Shaft, Superfly, and Coffee, presented black protagonists in ways that were new to mainstream entertainment, thus tough, independent, and stylish heroes who didn't conform to white society's expectations. These films were a response to Hollywood's historic erasure of black lead characters and gave black audiences heroes they could root for, strong, fearless, and unwilling to back down. Blade's earliest depictions leaned heavily into this aesthetic. He had the look, afro, green-tinted shades, and a leather jacket resembling characters like Shaft and Jim Kelly's martial artist from Enter the Dragon. His dialogue was written in exaggerated street slang, a choice that later creators, including Wolfman himself, admitted was a bit over the top. But underneath the aesthetic, Blade had something different. He was not just a cool black hero. He was a warrior fighting a war. While Blaxploitation heroes were often battling corrupt cops or drug lords, Blade was taking on an existential enemy, vampires, creatures that symbolized oppression, control, and systemic predation. And that's where his significance deepens. Blade's evolution, from human to Daywalker. Initially, Blade was just a highly skilled human with immunity to vampire bites. That made him unique but not superhuman. Over time, this limitation was changed. Blade's transformation in the 1990s, during Marvel's darker, grittier era, Blade's backstory was altered to make him a Daywalker. This change happened when he was bitten by Mobius, the living vampire, which altered his physiology, granting him vampire abilities but none of their weaknesses. This was a game changer. It elevated Blade from a street-level vampire hunter to a supernatural powerhouse. Now he had all the speed, strength, healing, and agility of vampires, but unlike them, he could operate in daylight, making him the perfect predator against them. His power set also grew beyond physical abilities. His heightened senses made him a near-perfect hunter, his healing factor meant he could endure brutal fights, and his longevity meant he could exist across different eras, much like his vampiric enemies. This version of Blade felt more like a legend, a boogeyman for vampires, rather than just another hunter. Greatest storylines, defining Blade's character. Blade has had numerous pivotal story arcs that defined his character, and some of them stand out as milestones in his journey. Let's break them down even further. 1. The Tomb of Dracula saga, 1973 to 1979. This is where it all started. Blade's earliest battles with Dracula cemented him as a relentless vampire hunter. He wasn't the main star of the series, but his presence stole the show. Unlike other heroes, Blade's approach to vampires was more personal. He wasn't just trying to defeat them, he hated them. This hatred made him reckless at times, often putting him at odds with his allies. It was one of the first times in comics that a hero was portrayed as deeply flawed, driven by revenge rather than noble ideals. 2. Midnight Suns, 1990s. This was Blade's first real entry into Marvel's supernatural realm. The Midnight Suns was a team of supernatural warriors, including Ghost Rider, Doctor Strange, and Mobius, formed to take on demonic threats. Blade was positioned as one of the most ruthless members of the group, and his battles against Lilith, the mother of demons, showed that he wasn't just a vampire hunter, he was a monster hunter. This storyline expanded Blade's world, proving he wasn't confined to Dracula's shadow. He had a larger role to play in the battle against supernatural threats. 3. Blade vs. Dracula. The final battle throughout Blade's history, his rivalry with Dracula has been one of the most defining aspects of his character. While he has fought and seemingly killed Dracula multiple times, Marvel always finds a way to bring him back. One of the most notable battles happened in Blade: Undead by Daylight, where Blade finally decapitates Dracula. This moment was symbolic. Blade killing the Vampire King was a metaphor for overcoming the oppressive forces that had haunted him since birth. 4. Blade and the X-Men: Curse of the Mutants. In this modern crossover, Blade joins the X-Men when vampires attempt to turn mutants into an army of the undead. This storyline is interesting because it presents a different kind of prejudice, vampires versus mutants, forcing Blade to work with a group of people who, much like him, are seen as outcasts. Blade and Black Representation. A deeper analysis. Blade was a first in many ways. While Black Panther was the first black superhero and Luke Cage was the first black hero to get his own solo title, Blade was unique because he wasn't just a black superhero, he was a black horror character. Blade represents something rare in black representation, a hero who doesn't need approval. He isn't trying to prove his worth to the Avengers. He doesn't seek validation. He doesn't wait for permission to fight. He operates in his own world, by his own rules. In a way, Blade embodies Afrofuturism, the concept that black people exist beyond the structures of white-dominated society. He doesn't operate within the constraints of the law. He doesn't need a shield like Captain America. His power is his own. Blade and the Civil Rights Movement. Blade was created in the early 1970s, just as the Civil Rights Movement was shifting toward black power. While earlier black superheroes like Black Panther were about showing black excellence, Blade was about fighting for survival. He wasn't a diplomat or a king, he was a warrior. In many ways, Blade's war against vampires mirrors the fight against systemic racism. Vampires, like racism, are embedded in the world's systems. They control wealth, power, and influence from the shadows. Blade doesn't just kill individual vampires, he fights against the system itself. The future of Blade's legacy is undeniable. The Blade films, 1998 to 2004, led by Wesley Snipes, paved the way for modern superhero cinema. Without Blade, there would be no X-Men, 2000, no Spider-Man, 2002, and certainly no Black Panther, 2018. With a new Blade movie starring Mahershala Ali on the horizon, his resurgence is inevitable. The question is, how will Marvel portray him? Will they embrace his darker, independent nature? Or will they integrate him too much into the larger MCU, losing what makes him unique? One thing is certain, Blade is here to stay. He is not just a character, he is a symbol of resistance, survival, and power. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the legend of Blade, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to African Reads Comics. What do you think? Will Mahershala Ali live up to Wesley Snipes' legacy? What's your favorite Blade moment? Let's talk in the comments below.